Alrighty, here we go. Chapter 4: Medical, Legal, and Ethical Issues. The topics that we're going to cover are going to be scope of practice, patient consent and refusal, negligence and duty to act, confidentiality and HIPAA, special situations, and ethical responsibilities of the EMT. The scope of practice refers to the regulations and ethical considerations that define the extent and limits of an EMT's job. It includes the skills and medical interventions you're allowed to perform and is defined by state legislation and regional rules and guidelines. Standard of care is a level of care expected from an EMT with similar training when caring for a patient in a similar situation. Think of it this way: scope of practice is what you can do, standard of care is how you do it. Patient consent is permission from the patient, or what it is it's a permission from the patient is required to assess, treat, and transport. Consent, one of four. Express consent is given by adults of legal age who are mentally competent. This must be informed consent, meaning the patient understands the risks and benefits of the care that they will receive. Implied consent applies when a patient is unconscious or unable to make decisions. The law assumes a reasonable person would consent to care if they were able. Children and mentally incompetent adults cannot legally provide consent or refusal. I've seen that pop up on tests. Consent must be obtained from a patient or legal guardian. One exception is in loco parents, meaning someone legally is acting in place of a parent, such as a school or daycare, with written permission. Some states allow emancipated minors, such as those who are married or of certain age, to give consent. Additional exceptions include life-threatening illness or injury when a parent is not present, minors who have children, and minors serving in the armed forces. Always check with local laws and protocols. Parents or patients may be transported against their will if they are considered a threat to themselves or others. This usually requires a decision by a mental health professional or law enforcement, or may occur due to a court order. If a patient is restrained, the EMT must ensure that the patient's health and well-being throughout the transport. When a patient refuses care, a patient may refuse care or transport only if they are legally able to consent, awake and oriented, fully informed, and willing to sign a refusal of care form. Even when everything is done correctly, EMTs still may be held liable. Take all possible actions to persuade the patient to accept care. Spend time talking with them. Listen carefully to understand their concerns and clearly explain the consequences of refusing care. Informing the patient of risks is an essential component of every refusal situation. Consult medical direction. You may ask to contact a family member or advise the patient that you would like to call one. I saw this on a practice test. If the patient agrees or does not object, this constitutes consent. Be careful. Sharing information without permission may violate privacy laws. If necessary, call law enforcement. Ask the patient to sign the refusal of care form used by your agency. Here's a think about it thing. What are the risks of starting treatment or transport without consent? What if the patient refuses to sign the refusal form? Courts have ruled that unwanted care may constitute assault or battery. Always have witnesses present and inform the patient that they can call back if they change their mind regarding transport or care. If possible, have a friend or family member remain with the patient. Document everything thoroughly. DNR and POLST. A do not resuscitate order, or DNR, is a legal document expressing a patient's wishes if they are unable to speak for themselves. A DNR may be part of an advance directive or a physician order for life sustaining treatment known as POLST. EMTs should also be familiar with living wills and healthcare proxies. Negligence occurs when something that should have been done was not done or was done incorrectly. To prove negligence, the plaintiff must show the EMT had a duty to act, that there was a breach of duty, and that the EMT failed to meet the standard of care. The plaintiff must also prove proximate causation, meaning the injury resulted directly from the EMT's actions or inaction. An example of injuries is caused by dropping a stretcher. Negligent EMTs may be required to pay for damages. Lawsuits against EMTs are usually civil torts, not criminal cases. A key concept is RES and then IPSA and then LOG, UITUR, meaning the thing speaks for itself. I'm not Latin, so I don't know how to say it. If EMTs had exclusive control and injury occurred, negligence may be assumed, even without direct evidence. Duty to act is the obligation to provide care. It depends on state and local law. Off duty, there is usually no legal obligation. Out of jurisdiction, laws may be unclear. Follow local protocols and your conscience. In general, acting in good faith creates less liability than failing to act. I've seen that on a practice test. Abandonment occurs when care is stopped after it has begun and before transfer to someone with equal or greater training. Good Samaritan laws offer protection when someone acts in good faith within their training. These laws do not protect against gross negligence or violations of the law and may not apply to EMTs in every situation. Confidentiality and HIPAA. All patient information is confidential. Saw that on a test. Under HIPAA, information may only be shared with healthcare professional or personnel involved in patient care or through a subpoena. Medical ID devices may identify conditions like heart disease, allergies, diabetes, and epilepsy. I've seen those four on a practice test. Organ donors may be identified by family, cards, or driver's licenses. Safe haven laws allow infants to be legally surrendered at a public safety location to prevent harm. Crime scenes. Once the police secure the scene, patient care is the priority. EMTs should recognize and preserve evidence while minimizing scene disturbance and working with law enforcement. EMTs may be required to report abuse, human trafficking, violence, sexual assault, certain restraints, and injuries involving intoxicated or mentally incapacitated individuals. Ethics guide professional behavior. EMTs must act honestly, avoid harm, respect patient decisions, treat patients fairly, report misconduct, and uphold professional standards. Medical, legal, and ethical issues are part of every EMS call. Using good judgment, critical thinking, and proper documentation protects I keep wanting to say parents, both patients and providers. And that completes chapter 4. I thought this was going to be a lot longer and this pretty cut and dry. And I will see you guys in chapter 5.